All right, so today let's talk about whether you should sell your house or not. All right, the biggest question I am getting asked everywhere I go is, Chris, should I sell my house right now? The market is on fire. Like, what should I do? You know what? And then everyone kind of jokes, like, maybe I should sell my house at the top and I'll go rent somewhere. So like, let's just like have like an open discussion about like what I think, being in the business for so long, about that, like what my opinion is. Number one, like let's just talk about like the pros and the cons, right? So if you're just like, hey, you know what? I just want to cash out. The market is up there and I am want to get the hell out of Dodge. Like, what is the motivation there, right? Like, are you looking to just cash out and make some money? Because let's be honest, like if you're going to sell your house for top dollar at the moment, and the market may continue to go up, are you going to buy somewhere else or are you going to rent? Because the problem is, if you're thinking about buying, you're going to go buy something else that's expensive. Now, if that's a lifestyle change and you're like, a lot of people move into Florida or somewhere like that, like just think about it, like down there, their market is also very expensive and at the top as well. So like that was something that was very common, you know, back in like the early 2000s, you know, before the market crashed, people were like, man, I should have sold my house when it was at the top. And what I always tell them is, hey, look, you know what? You would have gone out and bought something else just as expensive. So if you're looking to just like cash out and get out of Dodge, I would say that's not a good idea. Like unless you're planning to stay somewhere for the next 5 to 10 years. I always tell everybody that comes around and says, I want to buy a house, don't buy one just to buy it thinking, hey, you know what, I'm going to stay there for 2 years and flip it. Like the cost and everything associated just never works out. So like that is definitely like a con. Don't just sell to just sell, like have motivation. And the biggest thing too is with real estate is like, I always suggest don't ever sell real estate, like unless you have to, obviously, you know. One of the biggest reasons that I say don't ever sell real estate unless you have to is, let's like, if I walked into a bank right now, okay? Banks are a lot smarter than me and you. Wall Street, as much as people think they can outdo them on Robinhood and all these apps, Wall Street, the banks are a lot smarter than all of us. So if I walk into a bank today and I say, you know what, I want to buy a house, they're going to say, okay, great, like sit down, fill out the application and all that. We're going to go ahead and get you pre-approved. If I walk in and I say, hey, you know what? I want to buy $1 million worth of Bitcoin. Their ass is throwing me out the door, right? They're not going to lend me that because it's too, like, it's not something that they trust. Or if I say to them, you know what? I got an amazing stock tip. Will you loan me $1 million? Exact same thing. They're going to say, no way. Like, we're not loaning you money. But real estate, they know since they've been lending money, real estate has been consistently a good investment. And some of the most richest people we ever see, whether they make their money, most of their wealth at the end of the day comes through the properties they own, because over time they pay the house off, the house appreciates and all that. So don't ever just sell real estate just to sell real estate. Okay, the next point is, all right, should you rent your house out? Like if you want to move, that's definitely a great option. You know, like you can keep it as an investment property, you know, especially if you have the money. The biggest pros and cons of that, let's talk about that. Here's the thing, right? Are you prepared to be a landlord? Because a management company is typically going to take 8 to 12% of the rent that you make a month. So just make it easy. Say it's $1,000 a month in rent. They're going to take $80 to $120 a month to collect that rent, check on the property. Most of the management companies I've seen, they rarely ever actually do check on the properties, to be honest. They just make sure the rent's paid and all that and get all the late fees. But the biggest con is the very first place I ever bought, when I bought a new place, I went ahead and rented it out. It was a condo. This is what I did not expect. Every year, a new renter would come in, right? And they always paid on time. I did a good job vetting them out and all that. But what would happen when they left? I had to get new carpet. I had to get new paint. So yeah, I wasn't making any money off the rent. Maybe the place was appreciating a little bit, but I was still putting in like $5,000 to $10,000 a year in carpet and paint. So then it finally came to the point where I was like, okay, I got somebody in there for 3 or 4 years. And I was like, this is a great renter. Like I was making $200-300 a month off the rent. That's great, positive cash flow, which that's the ultimate goal. But it finally got to the point where they moved out, and then I looked and I was like, whoa, this place needs $20,000 worth of work. So I put the work into it. I was like, you know what? I'm done with it. Like, I don't want to be a professional landlord. And like, anytime someone moves out, like, I'm the guy, like, putting all the money into it. The HVAC goes out. They're calling me at 11 o'clock saying they have no AC working and all that. So like, are you ready to be a professional landlord? That's something that you need to ask yourself. And also, like, rental properties and all that, like, let's say they don't pay the rent and it's a time like it is during COVID and there's a moratorium where they can't be evicted. All of a sudden now you've got somebody in a place for a couple months that's not paying. So can you afford to pay that rent every month or that mortgage payment every month on your place? So that's like one of the big things. Is like, most people, I will tell you, like, unless you want to become a professional investor, which you have to be really savvy to own a lot of properties, like, don't just rent a place out. I suggest usually then, unless it's like something that you're going to like hold on to for long term and you have the cash reserves, I suggest then that you just go ahead and sell the property. And don't become a freaking professional landlord. Like, do you really want to call at 2 a.m. saying the AC is out and then all of a sudden you're doing, like, I got a call on Christmas one year about one of my properties, okay? Christmas, I was opening presents, and next thing I know, I'm helping somebody, and I'm taking heaters to somebody's house, okay? So you don't want to be a professional landlord, trust me. All right, so let's talk about another thing. Like, say like you were like, hey, you know what? Like, I had a friend recently that sold their place, and they're like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to move in my parents' basement. Like, I'm paying a couple $1,000s a month in a mortgage. My place is worth a ton of money right now. I can cash out. And what I told the person was, a great idea. I love it. But I've had many people in my day, I've seen, now that I'm getting older, I can say in my day, I've seen many people do that. And what do? They go out and they blow the money. They end up buying a brand new car. They end up, going to Vegas. They do all these stupid things. So like, what I tell people is, if you're walking away with a couple $100,000 and you're not used to that, and all of a sudden you've got that in the bank, like, make sure you meet with a good financial advisor that says, hey, this is a good plan for that money and like what you're going to do. And also a good CPA that can tell you like, hey, these are the tax benefits or whatnot, or the tax cons of doing that, because you've got to be really good with that money, because you don't want to just sell your place, cash out, walk away with a couple $100,000, and then all of a sudden, you're sitting there like blowing through the money like it's nobody's business, like you're a brand new NBA player, you know what I mean? So like, that is like another con. But the pro is, if you're frugal or you're good with your money, like me, for instance, like, I know if I run into a ton of money, I'm doing something stupid. Like, I'm going and buying a pair of Jordans, or like, I'm going on a trip, I'm buying some dumb crap that I don't really need. Like, let's be honest, you see a shoe spinning in the background. So like, that is like another thing. And the pro though is, if you can be good about it and you say like, hey, I'm gonna cash out, I got a good financial advisor, put that money there, could be a good thing to sell. Again, like, especially like if for your mental health, if you don't like living in a place, like, definitely then from there, just go ahead and sell it. The other thing though too is, like, if you're thinking about like, hey, we want to upgrade places, like, you definitely want a professional like myself or someone that knows how to navigate situations like this, because what you don't want to do is find a place you love, you still have your house that you need to sell, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I can't buy that place because my house isn't sold, or I wanted to sell my place, and the next thing you know, you're living on the street. A lot of the conversations that I have are like, hey, should we sell? But like, we don't know what to do. So like, there's things that I sit down with people when I come up to their house and say, look, we can sell your house and you can rent it back, or you can like sell it and we can like make sure the timing is right on the next place you purchase. So you got to make sure like all that timing and all that is right. Like, a good idea, like, God forbid, like, everything doesn't work out, like, you're not staying at the Motel 6 for a month in Manassas or somewhere like that. Like, you've got a good like plan in place. All right, last but not least, like, another option you could do is like do the Airbnb thing, right? I highly am against that. We are not near like a Disney World where we can like say there's a ton of things coming around. Like, we know people come here for a week to go on vacation. Yeah, people do go to DC, but like, let's think about it. Like, when you go to somebody's vacation home, do you treat it like your own home? Let's be honest. Hell no. I've seen some of your all's Instagram and Snapchat stories. You're freaking banging the luggage up and down the stairs. You're tearing the place up. You're having alcohol everywhere. So that's going to be happening to your precious house with your nice hardwood floors. They're not going to be that nice anymore. Trust me. Like, crazy stuff happens, and you got to have cleaners come in all the time. Like, I almost want to throw up just talking about this. Okay. So that is like the last final thing. But like, my final thoughts are like, if you want to sell because you want to buy like your next home, like a home that you want to live in for the next 5 to 10 years for your family, that would definitely be a good reason to sell. Or if you want to sell because you're moving out of the area, definitely sell, but don't just sell just to sell. And that is coming from a guy that makes money off selling houses, okay? So if you are thinking about selling a house, I know I went through a lot, hit me up anytime, text me at the number below. Make sure it's not too late because I do like to sleep. Text me anytime, hit me up. I will go through your process. You've seen all the videos we make, all the fantastic pictures we do, the descriptions. I mean, is there anybody better around here than me than this? No, there's no way. There's no way. So as always, I will see you at the top or from the top. Peace.